Welcome back into the Mental Game. I'm your host, Brandon Saho, and this week's guest is Indianapolis Colts linebacker Shaquille Leonard, and this was an amazing conversation talking about Shaquille achieving his ultimate childhood dream of being drafted into the NFL and being a star linebacker for the Colts, but also the tragedy that he faced when he lost his best friend and brother when he was just a senior in high school. We talk about depression, anxiety, mental health, the sleepless nights, and the heartache for him and his family losing his brother. All of that and much, much more in this episode. But before we get into that conversation, I just want to say thank you to everyone supporting the Mental Game. If you love these conversations, please like, rate, review, subscribe to the Mental Game. Tell your family, tell your friends as we try to continue breaking the stigma with my ultimate goal, which is saving lives with these conversations. Now it is time for the latest conversation on the Mental Game with Colts linebacker Shaquille Leonard. Welcome back into the Mental Game. As you can tell, I'm joined by a very special guest here from the Indianapolis Colts, Shaquille Leonard. Shaquille, I appreciate you doing this, my man.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. First thing I ask every guest on here, and their answer is different. Maybe it's a tool they've used in their life through the whole thing, or it's something they discovered more recently, or there's an event that triggers them to address their mental health. But what does mental health mean to you?
Mental health means a lot to me, man. Especially, coming from my upbringing, seeing the things that I've seen, mom working 2 or 3 jobs, had 2 brothers incarcerated, just starting work early. I got my first job at 13. Then I lost my brother at the age of at 17. So it was a lot. And then, in 2015 of me holding in, all of my feelings, all my anxiety, and not truly, asking for help. I actually had some heart issues back in 2015 where they actually had to go in and, kind of figure that out. And he told me that, man, you're just coming from all stress and you got to find a way to, cope with this. And so I started, reaching out, talking to people about my mental health. And it took that. It took me to kind of be on that hospital bed and say, all right, something has to change. And ever since then, me opened up about, what I've been through in my life, just made me a better person and made my old self come back out.
You mentioned your family, your brothers. When you were a senior in high school, you and your brother were super close.
Oh, yeah.
You guys slept in the same bed?
Yeah. Well, we did for a while.
Yeah.
And then we slept in the same room. We had our separate beds.
Yeah.
But, it wasn't that big of a room, and we kind of, was still, looking at each other, could touch each other if we wanted to. Everything that, we did together. We played basketball together every single day. We walked around the town 24/7. We had a 2-seater bicycle, so so you can imagine that. That's how tight we were, man. Everybody knew that you didn't see one without the other.
You mentioned how close you and Cavante were. When you lose him, walk me through what that was like for you, because that has to be one of, if not the biggest traumatic experience you went through with your mental health. And hearing this story really touches me because you have to ask yourself a lot of questions afterwards, because you guys maybe got in an argument and then he leaves and the last time you talked to him was an emotional experience.
Yeah. Man, it was tough, man. It was by far, the toughest thing I've ever been through in my life. When I lost him, I felt like I lost a piece of me. And like you said, man, it was crazy. Just our last conversation, it was a brotherly argument about, I asked, could I wear something his? He told me no. And he asked if he could wear something mine. I told him yeah. And it was kind of, argument there. And I told him that, I was ready for him to go back to school. And, later that day I came home, he was gone. And then the very next day, that's when I get the news. So, once I lost him, I felt like it was my fault because he wasn't, supposed to leave until, the following week. And, for a very long time, I thought his death was my fault, and I had to live with that. And it was tough. It was tough for a while. And, luckily I had my now wife, you know, by my side, and she knew my feelings. She knew that I was hurt. She knew that, you know, I was, you know, in some pain, and she made me, you know, feel like I was that special person, and she was there for me. And it was tough, man. It was by far and still the hardest thing, man. I still, you know, have sleepless nights. I still think about him all the time. You know, every time I play football, I take my wrist all the way up to his chin. I have a tattoo of his face on my arm, so
Oh, wow.
so make sure that he's still there. And you know, I still write my poems, man. It's you know, that's how I kind of get my emotions out at times when I don't feel like, you know, talking to people.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, I just write poems and, you know, let my feelings out. But yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough, but, you know, it taught me a lot. It taught me a lot. It taught me, you know, to cherish every moment and, you know, treat everybody with love and respect. And, you know, no matter what type of argument it is, make sure you end it by the end of the day and let them know that you are loved. And that's how I try to go about my day now, man. I try to make sure people feel, you know, that happiness, that love, and that care that the world needs.
The range of emotions from that whole story with your brother, and my understanding was he got in a fight and you thought that he was going to be okay.
Yeah,
you heard
man.
from the hospital that everything was going to be fine, and then the next day,
Oh, man.
the up and down of that, and then having the self-blame, which I'm sure you've already been told before, that's not uncommon in situations like this. How did you balance all of those emotions of the hope he's going to be okay to his passing to blaming yourself? I mean, that is a lot, especially for, what were you, 17, 18 years old? 17 years old going through that. How did you handle all those ranges of emotion?
Man, it was hard. I don't think I handled it well. You know, that night it happened. You know, I'm at Huddle House with Kayla, and I'm getting multiple phone calls. And normally when I'm on a date, you know, phone down, you know,
Right.
trying to give full respect. And someone was like, "Hey, man, just answer the phone."
Yeah.
And so once I answered the phone, they was like, "Hey, your brother got into a fight, got hit upside the head with a steel chair. He's, you know, knocked out." So I'm like, "All right, cool. You know, back where we from, you know, we used to fighting. You know, we used to people getting in the fight." So in my mind, it's like, all right, you know, he'll be okay. So we get to the hospital, and, you know, I go to the back, and, you know, I'm there. My mom is at the whole family there, and they're saying, I can vividly, you know, see him, you know, lying there, and he opened his eyes 4 times. And, you know, as he opened his eyes, he don't say nothing. So I look at the doctor, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, he's going to be okay." You know, me being at that age, and my mom always told me that I was tenderhearted.
Yeah.
I never loved seeing someone in that moment, in that state of mind. And so once they told me that he would be okay, you know, I said, "All right, cool, I'm gonna go home. You know, I'm gonna go home, and, you know, I come back, you know, tomorrow, and, you know, see him." So the next morning, somebody called, my aunt called me. My aunt Shannon was like, "Hey, how Kevontae doing?" So I'm like, "He's doing good. You know, he should be home today." So then I called my mom, no answer. Called my sisters, no answer. So now I'm worried. So then I called my brother Henri, and he said, "Hey, your brother's gone." And, you know, once he said that, man, all the emotions and everything, it was hard. It was very hard. And then to have to, you know, understand that my last things that I said to him wasn't what I wanted him to hear for the last time. And, you know, battling that emotions of that roller coaster, man, it was hard. At first it was a lot of disbelief. I didn't believe it. You know, it truly don't hit you right at the moment.
Right.
But, you know, still going up to the funeral, that's when it hit me. The day of the funeral, that's when I kind of truly broke down, and, you know, it just sucks. And that day kind of ruined my life, I would say, because for one, I never wanted to see my brother in that state, you know what I mean, and of that passing, and knowing that I would never be able to, you know, talk to my best friend again. And it was hard. It was hard, man. I took so much anger out on people that I love. I shied away from, you know, people that I was hanging around with. You know, I just wanted to be by myself. I wanted to be in my corner. I didn't want to feel any more emotions, like playing a game. Like, I had to go play basketball the following week.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was hard for me to do because we did that together. And he was playing basketball in college, and it made me think of him whole time I was on the court, man. And it was tough. I didn't know how to, for one, you know, battle my emotions, because, you know, I was taught, you know, you don't show too many emotions.
Right.
Men don't cry. You know, we're supposed to be tough, supposed to be strong, and, it hurt for a while, and it took all the way to 2015 for someone to tell me, how to truly, help myself, because I was trying to help other people and make sure that other people was okay, and not too many people was, seeing that I needed that help too.
Did you feel alone? Because that's like the most common thing, and I felt it when I was going through my biggest trauma, depression. I was suicidal for 3 months, and I just felt alone. Was that feeling the same for you?
Yeah, man, alone, man. It was hard. I felt like I was by myself because, we talked every day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then once I didn't have that, I didn't know what to do. So I just locked myself in a room, didn't talk to anyone, and then I had to go off to college that next year. And then, you can talk to my teammates from college, man. I didn't talk to them for a whole month because
Wow.
I wasn't ready for someone to try to step up in that void that I was missing.
Right.
So I was, in a corner. I wasn't eating. I was in a very, 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 very bad space, man.
You mentioned men not supposed to show emotion. I know in the black community, as a man, definitely don't show your emotions. How you've been brought up in the past. Where were you able to change that, and what maybe happened in your life that in the past you saw maybe I shouldn't, show my emotions? Because there is a stigma not only around men's mental health, but I think it's important to bring up black men's mental health because you're taught not to speak up.
Yeah, man. Because I feel like as black men, the way society look at us already, we somewhat have to hide our emotions. But I just feel like, man, without me being able to, show my emotions and tell people the way that I feel, that helped me out so much, man. And like me being who I am now as a black African American in the NFL, and if I can sit right here and tell these people that my mental state is not always on 100%, and I have problems with my past, man, that so many people are, going to reach out and won't be afraid to, open up about what they're going through in their mental health. And that's what it's going to take, man. It's going to take people like myself and other people to talk about mental health for people to open up, because we're taught that we got to be the provider. We got to be the strong guys. We got to make sure that your kids don't see you cry. You don't need to show no signs of weakness. But sometimes, you got to show them tears. You got to let them tears out, because those tears are watering something special. You letting out all that pain, and it's going to let you grow to be the great human being that you're supposed to be.
I think that is a super powerful way to put it, and a great message for anyone watching or listening at home. I mentioned for me, I was in a very dark place, and I was suicidal. Was there ever moments right after your brother's passing that you didn't want to be here?
Yeah, it crossed my mind a lot. Just that pain every single day, of, only watching videos, only looking at pictures, and, not seeing his goofy, spirit around.
Yeah.
It took a toll on me. At times, you think about, the worst. But then on the flip side, you think about your mom, you think about your dad, you think about your brothers and sisters of the pain that they're feeling now after losing one brother. Would you want them to go and feel that same pain again? So now it's like, okay, how can I make this better? How can I be a better version of myself? How can I make sure that my mom and sisters and everybody are smiling instead of crying?
For me, it was my mom. I could never. There were nights where I was drunk, walking in downtown Cincinnati, thought about jumping off a bridge or laying down in traffic, and it was the thought of my mother losing a child. It would literally kill her.
Yeah.
And so that was the thing that made me hold on. But also, you don't realize in the moment that it is just temporary.
Yeah.
And it's just a phase of life. And no matter how hard it is, whether it's your brother passing, or for me, I had 3 family members pass, relationship, went down the drain, but it's just temporary. How do you, I guess, give people advice to turn that switch in their head that it is only temporary and you can't get to the other side of it? Mental health, you always have to work on it, but you can get out of that space. Yeah,
but I think they got to truly understand that it's going to be hard.
Right.
It's going to be, it'll be bad before it get good. But, they say that, God give his toughest battle to his strongest soldiers, and he wouldn't put more on you than what you can bear. And he understand that. And sometimes you got to go through them trials and tribulations to get through the greater good. You know, every lifestyle isn't going to be a straight path.
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be so many obstacles in front of you that you're going to have to get over. And sometimes you're going to get knocked down, and sometimes you're going to feel like you don't have any more strength to fight. But my suggestion to you is, you know, if you get knocked down, you know, as long as you look up, you can get up.
Yep.
That's my mentality. You know what I'm saying? If I can get knocked down to this canvas over and over and over again, but I will never stay down, is because I know that in this life, this world is better and this world is great because I'm in it. And people need to understand that when it comes down to mental health, yes, you're going through all this right now, but that's going to make you stronger. And when you get through it, you're going to feel so much better, and you're going to see how strong that you really are once you get through it.
That is another great point, and I feel and think the same way and try to preach that message. You mentioned you mentioned poetry as being something powerful for you to do to help yourself. Have you ever gone to therapy since then, or what are your ways to make your mental health better?
Man, I haven't been to therapy since probably 2016. Fell in love with writing poems because, you know, as a athlete, you know, sometimes you don't want to go, you know, talk to someone, and the therapist told me, hey, write it down.
Yeah.
If you're angry,
it feels better if you get it out.
You just gotta find a way. You gotta find your way to make you feel better. And my way is writing poems and writing everything out. And that makes me happy because I can constantly, you know, write poems over and over again. And once you go back and go read your poems, like I was on a plane the other day. I wrote a poem back in 2017, and I forgot I even written a poem. And it was about my mom.
Oh,
and
wow.
It was about me, you know, wanting to see her be better. And that just gave me an extra, you know, juice behind me to say, all right, let's keep this thing going. And once because man, it's hard in the moment. Yep. It's hard in the moment to find help. It's hard in the moment to reach out for help, because for one, you're gonna have to, you know, dial the phone. Don't know if they're gonna answer or not. You got to travel somewhere to go talk to somebody. But if you can get that emotion out right away, you'll take that bad thought out of your mind, because once you let it sit in your mind, you're going to think about it all day. And if you let that take over your mind, you're going to become that. So the quicker you can find that help, quicker you can find your niche of getting it out, the better you'll be.
For me, like just driving around listening to music or working out, those are two things that like just take my mind off it, because my worst habit was I was a big drinker. So you go get drunk and try to cover it up, and it doesn't work. And now I've been sober for 2.5 months. So
congratulations
it's like,
on that.
Thank you, bro. And just like seeing a different light, knowing that like when you're in that bad headspace, learning when you're depressed, stressed, have anxiety, instead of going and doing the bad triggers, go do something like poetry, listen to music, work out. You mentioned until you got to college, that first month, you weren't really talking to anyone. Fraternity, that, and this was at South Carolina State.
South Carolina State.
How did that like just change you? It seemed like that was a real brotherhood that made you open up.
Yeah, let me back up for a second first, because you mentioned your drinking habits.
Yeah.
You know, that was mine too. You know, I was in college, I was drinking a lot, and I was so angry with myself.
Yep.
You know, I was fighting 2 or 3 times a week. You know, I was just in a bad space. And that's when, you know, in 15 and 16, when I got to therapy, that's when I started writing poems. So I understand exactly what you been through when it comes down to, you know, drinking, the pain away, just to, you know, to feel numb.
Right.
So I definitely, you know, feel that. And when it comes down to the member of Mega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, man, it was just the brotherhood of it, you know, just to seeing all the core values, you know, the manhood, the scholarship, the perseverance, and the uplift, you know, to seeing the things that they was doing on campus. They was always together.
Yep.
They always did community service. They always made sure that they was on top of, you know, the schoolwork, the scholarships and everything. And that was me. You know, I mean, I feel like I'm a great human being. You know, I always, you know, think about others, treat everybody with kindness. You know, I want to make sure that, you know, my schoolwork was good. And I always wanted to give back to my community no matter what. And I love hanging around the guys. Yeah. And just seeing the way that they carry themselves on campus, it made me want to be just like them. And, you know, once I joined, you know, the frat in 2015, you know, the bond, you know, I pledged with, you know, 30 other brothers. You know, I had 30, you know, my line was 31. And to come tight with them and when you online, you have to open up about yourself.
Yep.
You got to tell them the thing that you've been through. And I'm not going to lie, it had some times where, it bothered me, while pledging and everything. And, it made me open up and really let my guard down and, truly understand that everybody isn't out to get you.
Yeah.
And people understand that, yes, you lost a brother. We're not trying to take his place, but we're just trying to help you make that space more loving, more caring instead of more hate and guilt.
The power of brotherhood in the frat, I'm sure you just said it is one of the biggest things that helped you get through the loss of your brother and have that courage to speak up and show emotion. What about playing at South Carolina State? I mentioned before we started rolling, I covered an HBCU at Southern in Baton Rouge, and the football's different, the culture's different. It is a cool, amazing, tight environment at HBCUs, but also you're not playing on that big stage on ABC, CBS in front of 100,000 people. How much did that help and motivate you to get to the league, and what were maybe some of the obstacles you had to overcome playing at an HBCU?
Man, HBCU, man, it was by far the best decision I could have made in my life at that moment. Because like you said, you was at Southern, you know how big it is. It's not a big campus.
Yep.
So you know everyone on campus. So it felt like I was back in high school. I felt like everybody was family. And so when I'm playing, it was like I had my whole family watching. So, at big schools, man, you're not going to get that family environment.
Right.
And then, like you said, with the good music and
the good food,
oh man,
tailgates, woo, man.
Great food, man. And just the obstacles that we had to go to. We didn't have the same resources like the training room staff or, the weight room wasn't that big. We didn't have our own football facility. We ate with other students. So the other students got a chance to know who we were. We got a chance to know who the other students were.
Yeah.
And, man, that made me work even harder because so many people doubted us. So many people say that you go to South Carolina State, you'll never be anything. You'll never get drafted. And I remember when I first got there, Joe Thomas Joe Thomas Jr., he got picked up at free agency. And then Javon Hargrave was the first one to get drafted in the third round.
Wow.
And then I said, okay, if he can do it, I can do it. And I just kind of, just got my head down and just continued to work just so I can, prove to everyone wrong. Because ever since I was in high school, man, they said I was too small. Say I wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough. Oh, you going to a HBCU, we'll see you back here in about 2 years, back in Lakeview. And I just always wanted to prove them wrong. And, that's what I'm doing now. And that's what I'm trying to continue to do because, man, this life that we live, we have so many spectators. And there's so many people who's going to say a lot of things about you. And people don't understand that, we still are human.
Right.
And we still see you talk about us. And mentally, it can take a toll on you.
Yep.
People don't understand that we're saying that, oh, you suck, and you quit, and you're doing this. And, if you continue to read that stuff, you see it a lot, you're starting to believe that that's who you really are. And then, that mental state is like, wait a minute, that ain't me.
Yep.
They're going to always have an opinion. Let me go out here and show them who I really am. And, that's what I try to do, man. And that's why, I started my Maniac Foundation hotline for mental health, with the monthly message.
Yep.
And I think that's by far one of the biggest things that helps me out is me being able to deliver a message to tell people that it's going to be okay because I don't feel like I'm talking to them. I feel like I'm just talking to myself the whole time. Like I'm letting them know, like, hey, yes, I'm battling this right here with the team. I'm battling this at home.
Yeah.
I'm letting them know that I'm going through the same issues that you're going through. And the only thing you got to do is continue to keep working, continue to find a way to help your mental health out and find a way to reach out. And that's what I love to do, man. I just love to speak, and I love to make sure people feel like they're not alone in this crazy world.
And what you're doing is awesome here in Indianapolis, back in your hometown with the Maniac Foundation, everything that you've done on and off the field with the Colts. I know you have a team meeting in a few minutes. We got about 5 left, so I'm doing my job looking at the clock, making sure you're not getting in trouble with the coaching staff. But I truly believe good things happen to good people who work hard. Yeah. And so hearing your story and hearing other stories on this podcast or just people that message me, email me, if you put in the work, whether it's on your dream, your mental health, love, family, whatever it is.
Yes, sir.
Good things do happen when you put in the work. And one of the biggest things, obviously, was you getting drafted, coming to play for the Colts. You had an amazing rookie year. You've played really well since. But last year, I want to just touch on that before we end the podcast because it was tough. You went through a concussion, broken nose, and then you had season-ending back surgery in the middle of the season. What the hell was that like?
Man, it was by far the worst year of my life. So back in April of last year, I came to OTAs, and, I worked out for the first day, and then I go home. I can't do a calf raise. I don't have no feeling in my left leg. So for a whole month, they're thinking it's my ankle.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure that out. And then finally they say, oh, your L4, L5 is depends on the nerve. You got to have back surgery. So I say, all right, how long am I going to be out? They say you got about 2 to 3 months. You should be back right before the season opener. So in my mind, all right, cool, let's go.
Yep.
So I go have the surgery, and I come out of surgery, and I'm not getting any better. So I'm working every day to get better, and they told me the only way you can get better is actually by getting on the field and doing football movement. So me, if you tell me that it's gonna work,
you're ready to go.
I'm ready to go. So man, every day I go into practice, and I'm in pain all day.
Jeez.
Every day. I go home. I'm on the table. I see my girls. Probably 5 to 10 minutes. Hey, how y'all doing? Love on them. I'm downstairs. From probably 6 o'clock to probably 11 or 12 at night, maybe sometimes 1 or 2 in the morning, just to be ready for the next day. And that's a constant cycle all the way up till, then I broke my first game. I go in, I break my nose. Now I got a concussion, out for 2 weeks. So I come back from there. The coaches are telling me, hey, you're going to get back in there. We looking good. So in my mind, I'm gonna be back. I'm on the field.
Right.
Now I'm got to worry about splitting time. You're sitting the bench. That's new for me.
Yep.
And now I felt like if they would have been honest and told me, like, hey, you're not ready, I would have felt comfortable. But in my mind, I thought that I was going to be able to play. So just being able to sit down, it was hard for me mentally. And then it was like November 8th, I'm on the practice field. Mm-hmm. And I was used to, feeling like a little power.
Yeah.
This day with no power.
Wow.
So I'm like, whoa, something's not right. Next thing you know, man, I called the doctor. Hey, is this supposed to feel like this? I know you said sometimes you can be in a rut.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a rut. Couldn't find out, man, that same thing that happened once before happened again. So now I got to have another surgery.
Jeez.
So now it's season-ending surgery. Oh, man, I'm getting so much backlash, everything. It was so hard, man, because I felt like I was doing everything that I was supposed to do to get back and help this team. And then just standing on the sideline watching us lose. Yep. It hurt. It hurts me. And then to go home and be away from football, man, it sucked. It sucked, man. And I'm just trying to, go one day at a time. I stopped looking at the bigger picture saying, all right, we're going to be better tomorrow.
Yep.
In my mind, it's, all right, no, let's get 1% better. Let's focus on small ways to get better and then let the big results come later on at the end.
Well, I love your story, and I can tell you love football, obviously love talking about mental health, trying to help other people. That is my goal, too. Quickly, because we only have a couple minutes, advice to anyone that wants to follow your footsteps just quickly on getting to the league. What is the one thing they need to focus on?
Focus on,
or maybe not one thing, but,
I would say, man, if you want to get where I'm at, understand you're not who you are. You're not who you think you are. There's so many people in this world that, got the same exact goal. And what makes you different, it got to be somewhere in your work ethic. Mm-hmm. It's got to be somewhere in your character. And you got to make sure each day you're trying to get better. We're not trying to make big jumps. Just make sure each day you're getting 1% better. You're working hard and understand that you're not the greatest player ever. Take the coaching, practice harder than ever, play harder than ever, and never take the game for granted, because you never know when the game will be snatched from up under your feet. And I'm telling you, you got to make sure that you're always working and keep your mind going and never feel like you got it, because you never got it.
I feel like you're a preacher or a motivational speaker, not a guy in the league, but I appreciate it, Shaquille.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Too,
and we'll see everyone right back here next week on The Mental Game. And I can't thank Shaquille and the Colts organization enough for having me out to Indianapolis at their facility to shoot this episode. As you just heard, it was an amazing, inspiring, and impactful conversation with Shaquille. Also, big shout out to the Colts. They are one of the best in professional sports when it comes to breaking the stigma surrounding mental health. I think it was last season, if not the season before, where they started their Kicking the Stigma campaign, which really gets the Indianapolis community, Colts fans, and their own players and staffers involved in trying to break the stigma around mental health. They're one of the best, if not the best, in pro sports at that. All right, next week coming up on the Mental Game, it is, I think, my biggest guest yet. Bucket list interview for me. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I will give you his famous line, and it is the only hint I'll give you. Why don't you have a seat? That's the hint. Maybe you know, maybe you don't. You're going to find out next Tuesday, right back here on the Mental Game.